About 10 kilometers south of Pula, on the very edge of Istria, lies Kamenjak, a long, deeply indented peninsula where sea and land constantly meet. Narrow coves cut into the coast, rocky headlands face the open sea, and the shoreline remains mostly rugged and stony, as if nature chose to keep this place wild. The Istrian coast is known for its Mediterranean landscape, olive groves, red soil, and historic towns like Ravin, shaped by decades of tourism. Kamenjak, however, shows that even here, parts of the coast can preserve open space, wilderness, and natural value without becoming fully developed. Kamenjak is about 9 kilometers long, yet its coastline stretches far beyond that, shaped by countless coves into nearly 30 kilometers of shore. In sheltered bays, where waves soften, the sea has formed small pebble beaches, and the clear water often reveals the seabed at first glance. One cove even surprises with sand, but stone still dominates, rough, solid, and unmistakably photogenic. The rocks along the edge of the peninsula often resemble stone ramparts, sometimes arranged in 2 or 3 natural steps. And this shape is far from accidental. Kamenjak is built of limestone, a sedimentary rock formed in an ancient warm sea, whose layers fractured over time under geological forces, breaking into large blocks and networks of cracks. Waves and tidal movement later shaped the final form, carving, sharpening, and molding the rocks into distinct edges and shallow niches. Although these exposed rocks may seem lifeless at first glance, their cracks, especially in the zone reached by sea spray, support a range of resilient plants that survive with little soil, little moisture, and strong adaptation. Among them is the sea anemone, standing out with its vivid red color against the pale stone. Kamenjak also preserves traces of deep geological time. In the Cove of Peninsula, unusual impressions can be seen in the rock, while the nearby islet of Feneliga is famous for hundreds of preserved dinosaur footprints. These are literal fossilized steps from a time when Istria lay in a different position on the planet. Today, instead of dinosaurs, birds walk along the shore, their distant evolutionary relatives. Seagulls gather in large groups by the sea, especially near islets where they nest, while the Mediterranean shag moves along the rocky edges and dives for fish. After feeding, it often spreads its wings to dry, a familiar sight of a coast that still functions as a living habitat. In summer, Kamenjak also becomes a popular swimming area, yet its charm lies in the fact that it is not experienced as a typical beach, but as a landscape where everyone finds their own cove, their own rock, and their own quiet. Pebble beaches are better suited to families and children, while rocky shores attract those seeking solitude, a small space for themselves, and the company of waves, wind, and cicadas. The most beautiful time is early evening, when the sun softens, colors become gentler, and stone terraces by the sea turn into a perfect place to rest. Then, Kamenjak feels like a space for quiet slowing down. You sit, listen to the waves, follow your breath, and it feels as if the day slowly washes away from the body. Far from the noise and crowds of the rest of the coast, it is easy to slip into a small meditation, with only the sea and a sky fading into gold. Diving is a favorite activity for many in the clear waters of Kamenjak. While the sea can be rough and unstable close to the rocks, just a short distance away it becomes a true pleasure. The underwater world is often the highlight of the experience, as even a brief dive reveals a well-preserved seabed that gently slopes into deeper water. In the shallows, common fish species can be seen, while the bottom comes alive with algae, sponges, starfish, and small organisms inhabiting cracks and rocky surfaces. During the summer months, large gelatinous organisms also appear in the water column, including Mediterranean jellyfish and cone jellies. Both are harmless. Their slow, silent movement in the clear water is another sign that the sea is alive, and that something new can always be discovered, even without deep diving. Seagrass meadows are especially important. Marine flowering plants that may look like dark underwater grass, but are in fact one of the key Mediterranean habitats, providing shelter, feeding grounds, and space for growth to countless organisms. When you step out of the sea, a different layer of Kamenjak appears. Fragrant maki and forest rising above the rocks. Pine trees provide shade during the hottest part of the day, while in summer, the air is filled with the sound of cicadas hidden along the bark. The pine forest is dense and tangled with shrubs and climbers, making it difficult to move through away from marked paths. Beyond the forest, Kamenjak opens into wide, dry grasslands, quiet and sunlit areas that strongly enrich its plant life. Botanists have recorded around 600 plant species here, turning this small peninsula into a natural open-air herbarium. Among them, orchids stand out in particular, and in spring, the peninsula becomes a colourful garden alive with insects and butterflies. Orchids are important here because they depend on open, maintained grasslands, so their survival relies on the landscape not becoming overgrown with dense maki. Some species have highly specific relationships with their pollinating insects, and the greater the diversity, the more stable the ecosystem becomes. With abundant sunlight, reptiles also thrive here, finding both warmth and shelter among rocks and shrubs. Kamenjak is also a landscape shaped by tradition, where people for centuries used these open areas for olive groves and small fields. In this way, human activity helped preserve a mosaic of grasslands, shrubs, and forests, allowing many plant and animal species to survive within a largely natural setting. Through the peninsula runs a network of unpaved roads, and only a few places offer shelter or refreshment, giving the area a feeling of remoteness rather than development. Kamenjak deserves a visit not only for swimming, but for the story it weaves within a small space, connecting geology, ancient history, plants, and the sea. More importantly, it must be protected from excessive human pressure, so it can remain what it is today, a fragment of wild coast where nature still speaks the loudest.